And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is October 3rd, 2022. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. As always, my name is Sean Phillips, and I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, the great and powerful Travis Kirkendall and Andy Van Beber. Gentlemen, how are you both doing today?
I tell you what, I've felt like I have been missing a part of my life for a week, but between the three of us, we are three busy suckers. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, lately it's been like we weren't even able to have the show last week. It was just crazy. And I almost had to call and cancel the night on you guys, and thank God it worked out. It's just been kind of nuts lately.
Travis, you, no offense, brother, but you look like you've been rode hard and put up wet. So,
Yeah, we've been, we're working in Indiana right now, and it's almost 2 hour drive there and a 2 hour drive home. So you work, 11, 12 hours, you're gone. Yeah, it's been wearing me out.
I can only imagine that. Sean, what's going on the production side of your life?
Well, always busy. The last couple of weeks have kind of been absolutely insane. A couple pretty big things are actually in the works that, again, I'm not going to speak on until they kind of happen. Don't want to jinx anything, but no, things are good. Bunch of really good events coming up here in October. November will be good, and then December, we're actually going to be in Arizona, so I get to spend a couple days in Phoenix and kind of get to do a mini vacay, but then also work. Hopefully, see like some family that I haven't seen in a couple years. So yeah, it's good. Just now we're prepping for the busy season. Box lead events, MMA events coming up that we also help co-produce. So it's just never ending. It feels like, but that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I I didn't share this with you guys before we got on tonight, but Friday night was nonetheless interesting. I've been traveling a lot with Bradley on cross country and everything. And then, so Friday night, I said, we're going to relax. Janine's battery was dead on our van, so I had to get a new battery. And I said, before I put the new battery in, I got home Saturday from cross country meet, and I laid down. I fell asleep on the couch. And then I started watching the Rings of Power series and got into that. And then about 7 o'clock, Bradley comes upstairs. She's getting ready to take a shower, and she said, "Dad, there's water in the basement. There's coming from the ceiling." I'm like, "Oh my God!" So I go downstairs, and I've got about 9 ceiling tiles that are just bulging down with water. And
Oh no.
and so I said, "Run upstairs and turn it," because I had a feeling where it was coming from. I said, "Turn the dishwasher off." And then I went up, and while I pulled out all these ceiling tiles, I just barely poked them, and they all just started collapsing in. I had water and musted ceiling tiles everywhere, and went upstairs, and sure enough, the drain pipe from the dishwasher that goes into your drain had popped off. The clamp had popped off, and so put all that back up, tear all that down, and I cleaned it all out, and we rolled the area rug that we had downstairs. I had about an inch of water on that, and we just throw the area rug out in the driveway and let it air dry for 24 hours. And then I bought ceiling tile yesterday, and I finished putting it up today, actually just about an hour ago. So yeah, that was, and then out $200 on the battery, out 70 some odd dollars with ceiling tile and everything. So it's been one of those weekends that you just rather just sit in a tub full of scissors and just think about life.
Well, I'm really glad that, right. No, I'm glad that it wasn't like a burst, like a broken pipe.
Oh, that's what I was
that
afraid.
involved,
That's what I
some
was.
serious,
Yeah.
some serious kind of plumbing or anything like that. Because then that's even worse. Because then you have the plumber coming over when you're not home.
Yeah.
And then you just got other things you got to worry about if he's coming back and the pipes have been fixed for a couple months, and you're like, what are you still doing here? Then you know what's really happening. But I'm glad that
Yeah, we got
things that they're not too terrible. That
no,
sounds good.
No, we're good. We are good. And Colby Coleman, our faithful listener, said to ask you got any pro wrestling events coming up, Sean?
Yeah, me myself wrestling. No, not myself. Pretty soon here. I plan on getting to wrestling again. It's just it's not right yet. I got to knock off some ring rust and stuff like that. But as far as wrestling events, we do our television taping October 23rd. Pretty big card. WWE superstar Carlito will be there. Gangrel is going to be there, as well as all the United Wrestling Network individuals we've had in the past. Like I said, November should be a good show, but then December in Arizona, Mesa to be exact, we're at a pretty big venue. And then on top of that, it's going to be one of our super cards. So there's going to be a bunch of different big name talents from all over that are coming in, a bunch of big surprises. Hopefully working like Booker T again, something like that, maybe. So just some cool stuff like that.
That's interesting.
But otherwise, no, kind of same old. Again, some cool things in the work, but I'm not going to get into them now.
You don't want to jinx yourself.
Yeah. But again, a conversation for another day once the ink is dried, and we'll put it that way.
Also, your buddy Ronnie Pack says the beard's looking good, Phillips. So,
hey,
warrior beard for you.
Yeah, this is.
Hey, you know what? Go ahead and take the hat off. Go ahead and show them what's underneath the hat. Show them.
Not yet. They'll be able to see that one day, but not today.
Oh my gosh! Well, we have an interesting show lined up, and we all, we were talking about last week that we could, Travis said, well, we could do this show without one of us. I was like, I want us all three to be in the room I want, because this is a big topic that we're going to be straddling tonight. And this is, it's a topic that it really affects all of us. Travis and I are personally, affected by this because Travis's wife is from Venezuela. My children are from China. And when you look at anything that deals with immigration, this is another one of those polarizing issues that can split your country right down the middle. And from events that had happened 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago? It was 2 weeks ago, right?
For which specific event?
For when DeSantis sent his people.
It was roughly 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I would say 2 weeks ago.
So Ron DeSantis had sent a group of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Governor
that
Greg
was one of the locations.
And Governor Greg Abbott from Texas sent a group of undocumented immigrants to Vice President Kamala Harris's, basically her front door. And when you look at all the stuff that they sent them with, practically, I don't even know if MapQuest is still a thing or not. But it looked like MapQuest directions on how to get to the address.
Yeah.
And so we're going to kind of delve in, and we definitely are looking for you guys to kind of comment tonight on the chat line. We're going to be going over a lot of different topics. And first of all, I think one of the common questions, guys, that I get as a teacher is, what's involved in the process? What does it take? And for naturalization, except in cases of adoption, which that's a different category. But we're not going to go down that road. I just want to, in general, okay, the first thing is that an applicant for naturalization has to be 18. They have to establish legal permanent residence in the United States, and I believe they have to be physically present in the United States for 30 months. The naturalization applicant has to show good what they consider, this is not my words, this is NCIS's words, good moral behavior. And they said, like, murder convictions are a permanent obstacle to naturalization, as are aggravated felony convictions. Certain criminal convictions in the 5 years prior to applications, stuff like that. They have to be able to support and defend the United States Constitution. I guess that's kind of similar to the oath that you guys take whenever you sign up. They have to, they have to pass the citizenship test, which is a 100-question test, which, is a side note, I, as a social studies teacher, government teacher, as of 2020, Missouri high school seniors have to pass the citizenship test to be able to get a diploma. And then they have to take the oath of allegiance. So those are your basic requirements. When you look at
a lot of money.
Well, so what you look at up front, okay, the current naturalization fee for U.S. citizenship application, just the application, is $725. Okay, that's just the application. Okay, then you have to go through biometrics, which again, it's also very inconvenient, because when we adopted our kids, the nearest biometrics place that we could go to, and I know they do it up at Bowling Green, but the nearest place that we could go to was over Decatur, Illinois, which is 30 minutes on the other side of Springfield. And then you go over there. And then if you want to expedite your visa process, you can do a rapid visa process, which can be, a lot more money. And then there's just the mess of forms and all of the crap that you have to fill out. Now, you say, well, $725. You have to remember, in some of these Central American countries, I would say that's close to a year's wage.
Oh, 100%, especially with the inflation that they're dealing with down there.
Right. So, and then, and of course you can get green cards. Green cards are basically your long-term visas for you. So you can get a green card.
Resident.
Yeah. So you can get a green card through a family member, whether your immediate relative is a U.S. citizen, you have a fiance of a U.S. citizen, a widower of a U.S. citizen, and then they have I found this one interesting, what's called a victim of battery or extreme cruelty, abused spouse of a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. So, okay.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah. Green card through deployment, obviously, immigrant worker. You have what's called the physician, which a lot of these doctors get in on, what's called a physician's national interest waiver, or an immigrant investor. If you've invested or are actively investing at least over $1,050,000, you can get a green card. A special immigrant can be a religious worker, a special immigrant juvenile, okay, because you've been abused. And then they have a category just for Afghanistan or Iraq nationals, an international broadcaster, refugees. And the biggest one, the most popular one that is granted, is asylee and refugee. So you're asking for a green card for asylum or refugee from political situations. There are green cards for human trafficking and crime victims, green cards for victims of abuse, and then there's a whole some special categories. All that being said, the process can be quite extensive to get, to get into the country. And it is very time consuming. Now, like we said, they can give expedited visas. All right. In our case, our adoption process took 13 months. I can tell you that the majority of that time, I would say 6.5 to 7 months of that was applying for the visa for our children and the citizenship papers. Now that's not the whole citizenship process. Then is just a whole nother thing, but it was a lot easier for our kids because they got in. Take all
Can
that
I
in.
make a note?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to go off of what you're saying, um, you can do that whole process. You can pay the application, and it's no guarantee that you even get it. I mean, when I say no guarantee, depending on the country, and from my experience, South American countries, it is almost impossible to get approved for a visitor visa, a student visa. It is near impossible. My Just quick story, my sister-in-law has applied 3 times, got denied every single time, and there's no refund for it either. The
No.
government keeps the money. And they don't give you an answer either as to why you got denied. So
Right.
right off the bat, I want people to realize it's a very hard, somewhat near impossible process, depending on where you're coming from.
So there's definitely some countries have it. So okay, so you mentioned here are the top. Here's some of our top countries that's hardest to get a visa from this country to this country: North Korea, China,
Hmm.
Russia, Saudi Arabia, Bhutan, which is on that Arabian Peninsula, obviously Russia, Pakistan, Nigeria, Turkmenistan. What else is on? Those were the top. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So those are the 9 hardest countries to get visas from. So I mean, because for many of these, and like I said, when we went through the Chinese, I will say this for the Chinese have it down to an art form, to where I mean, in our agency that we worked with is great. They're like, da, 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 da. Here's this, here's this, here's this. It was more expensive for us for the fees that we had to pay for China than it was for here in the United States. I can guarantee you, I'd drop somewhere in the neighborhood of $12,000 to $13,000 just on all the stuff that I sent to China, and
That's crazy.
that was to get those kids here from there to here. And I mean, there's no wiggle room. So when you look at the process to get to America, we've come a long way. We used to, back in the early 1900s, we had various laws that were in place. Some that just come to mind, right? The Immigration Restriction League pushed Congress to push for in the early. This was at the height of the first Red Scare, after 1917. A certain percentage of, like, okay, we're going to say, in people that are coming here from, let's say, Romania, okay, per year, what they would do is they would allow a certain percentage of those people from those countries to come in. And coming into the country was pretty much as simple as you getting on the boat, coming over to Ellis Island on the East Coast and Angel Island on the West Coast over in San Francisco, proving that you have a sponsor, or you had to have a sponsor. You had to have someone who could vouch for you. You had a place to go. And you could, and if you didn't, it's like, okay, here's our percentage from Romanians. We can only accept this much, and then we move them on, So the doors were open pretty wide from the 1880s until about the 1920s because of the second industrial revolution, the growth in factories, the growth in material production. We had a need for workers, and there were those people who said, okay, we want immigrants, but we don't want all the filth that comes with them because we can pay them cheaper, they're expendable, and we can, the language barrier and all that other stuff. And so you saw a lot of reform then after Teddy Roosevelt became president. He made a push. with some of the immigration laws and reform those between him, Taft, and Wilson. Three progressive presidents worked very hard to streamline the immigration process. And so it's been a building process along the way.
But I would say some of these, it's funny, you mentioned a couple things. Some of the issues that people had with immigrants, even back then, we're seeing the same thing
Yes.
today.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Almost the exact same thing, it sounds like.
Yeah. One of the things, the whole thing, and back in the day, I'll mention the Chinese immigration, I forget what it's called. The Asian, it wasn't just Chinese, it was the Asian restriction law. And in California, the Californians worked hard to keep Japanese from owning property. They said only American-born citizens could own property. So what a lot of these Japanese people would do was their children who were born in the United States, they would deed their property over to their, in some cases, little kids.
Yeah, the child.
Yeah, and so, but I mean, the railroads brought in, when they built the Transcontinental Railroad, they brought in tons of Chinese because you could pay them half of what you were paying. Coming across from the east, you had the Irish, you had Civil War veterans, you had all these guys, but the Chinese, man, and they would work hard, and there were a lot of them. And they did some of the suckiest work there was, like when they were going through the mountains, planting dynamite charges into the side of the mountains and, doing all the dirty work. So we do not, and I'm going to preface our discussion as we move on to say that we have not been the innocent party in this either. We have done our due diligence to screw immigrants over. That's a generational thing that has been going on for a long time.
No, 100%.
So,
yeah, I guess I'll get into some numbers here I got pulled up for you guys. So this first set of numbers, this is from the Customs and Border Patrol website. And this report was as of January 22, and I'll get into some later dates as well. So as of January 2022, the number of unique individuals encountered was 111,437, an 18% decrease from the prior month of December. And there was 153,941 encounters along the southwest border in January, a 14 decrease compared to December. But that's kind of the numbers that we were seeing at the beginning of the year. It was around 110 to 150,000. Fast forward to now, May, the U.S. saw the largest number of migrants arrested and encountered along the southern border since Customs and Border Protection began counting numbers of migrants encountered since the year 2000. CBP encountered 239,416 migrants along the southwest land border in May. And I guess this was an increase from April as well. And 25% of those encounters were previously arrested and deported by CBP. So people are trying to re-enter. The past 4 months, according to CBP statistics, migrant numbers along the southern border have increased steadily over 200,000 each month. So there's more and more people that are coming. And there's increased, they have breakdown the numbers as well. There's more unaccompanied minors are coming, like kids. You're seeing just a larger influx of people, and they're taking huge risks to do it too. I don't think people realize some of these people, they're coming from Venezuela, Colombia, these Central South American countries. Yeah, it's not just contrary to popular belief, there's more to South America than just Mexico for our people in Pike County. But sorry, I'm just joking.
Sean, what kind of, when you're in California, what are, so in the Los Angeles area, so just kind of give us a little bit of, as far as geography goes, how long of a drive is it from Los Angeles, would you say, down to down there to to the Mexican border?
I don't know, but I've been told like 3.5, 4 hours.
So what do you see a lot? I mean, obviously do you see a lot of Latinos in Los Angeles? Obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really just kind of depends on like the part of LA that you're in. But yeah, like it really just depends. But I'm trying to think of like places where I've seen like more of a Hispanic community than like our neighborhood's pretty diverse. Like where we live, there's people from all walks of life, but then like there's like different kind of sections. So like Van Nuys, for example, in the valley, has like a huge Latino, like huge group of Latinos that live out there. And I when you go shopping out there, the restaurants, even like the not restaurants, the businesses like Aldi's, for example, has the like a huge Hispanic food section that like other Aldi's like in Troy or whatever would not have.
Right.
But it's a huge part of the store there. Same with like the Walmarts and even like the Costco's. They carry a lot of different products that you like would typically associate with Hispanics, like that they regularly consume or would have in South America. So, but Van Nuys is pretty big because even like there's like certain strips and like all the business names and everything are all like in Spanish. So it's the same thing. Like you can go to Koreatown and everything out there is Korean. So I mean, yeah, there's different kind of sections where.
I was quite amused, and Travis, I get your input on this too, since you're Chicago man. When I have visited downtown, I've stayed in various parts of Chicago. I've stayed. I think it was like a Marriott that was like a mile up from Union Station. We stayed. One time Janine and I went there and we stayed in. They said it was Greektown, and Greektown to me was totally cool. You know, when you go down, what they call down there below, Little Italy is like down there. Everything south of Soldier Field pretty much is like Little Italy, and then you
Yeah,
get
they got
it.
Little Italy, they got Chinatown. I mean, they
Yeah,
got very diverse. And even the neighborhood we lived in, Irving Park, was a very majority Hispanic Latino community, or
and
Latin community, I should say.
and then when you get out into the suburbs, I always thought it interesting, and it was something my brother-in-law's kind of joked about, but it was like, they were living in these. Well, my one brother he's an engineer for General Electric, building. He actually designs and builds electric locomotives. And you say when you go into his neighborhood, you can tell you're in the affluent middle class neighborhoods. But then you have these houses that are in Bolingbrook, a lot of these southern in there. And I was like, and I saw some signs that are like, oh, houses from the 150s. And I thought, that's kind of cheap for Chicagoland, isn't it? And my brother in law he's like, yeah, that's where all the Mexicans live. And, what America was founded upon was this ideal that when you talk about what we're a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants, and yes, there are those people who have Native American roots, and there's those people who do settle down here. But it's kind of like I think back to the whole story about what when you built the Statue of Liberty, and in the base of the Statue of Liberty is Emma Lazarus' poem that was called the New Colossus. Give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your huddled masses yearning to be free. Okay, and now we put up the sign that says no vacancy, and we have become a nation of people who are very. Is xenophobic the right word to use? I don't know. Is that the right word to use? Xenophobic. That we are
Racist ass honkies is the term you're looking for.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Sean. I knew I could count on you.
I would agree with that. I would agree with your statement. I
But
actually had to Google what that meant, but yeah, I
yay!
agree.
Travis, I have a question for you. So,
Okay.
with your wife being from Venezuela,
Hmm.
um, so a question because I don't want to generalize or get anything wrong. With her being from Venezuela, she uses terms like Latino, Latina, right? Like when talking about
Hmm.
like people or like things like that. Okay,
Yeah, Latin America.
so has she like given any input? Like, have you guys heard the term Latinx? Is that like a thing you guys have heard before?
I've heard it before. She's
I have
never
not.
mentioned it, but I've seen it on the internet.
I have not.
Okay, so like Latinx is like a white people thing, that was
Yes.
made up to like to non-genderize like Latin Americans. So like they're not Latino, they're not Latina, they're Latinx. And it was just funny because like I have seen online that like people that are Latin American are like that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard of. They're like,
Well,
no,
everything in
it's
Spanish is male female. Like
Right.
everything.
exactly. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
and
make any sense.
so white people made up this Latinx thing to,
Or masculine thing, I
like
should say.
to not genderize or stereotype words, Latin words.
Wow.
And it was just funny, like Spanish words, my bad, not Latin, Spanish words. And it was just funny because while here in Los Angeles, of course, it was the first time I heard a person say like, "Yeah, it was a Latinx person," and I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And they're like, "Yeah, they were Latinx," and I was like, "Latino," and they're like, "Well, I don't know that." And I was like,
Well,
"Get the fuck
Welcome to
out of here!"
California,
Like, come on, man. Yeah, right.
buddy.
well,
Oh,
I
that's
guess
awesome.
we.
And she was very, very white.
All right. Oh my
So,
God. Well, I don't know
what
that.
is? I mean, before we get into this discussion a little bit further, just from your viewpoint as a Travis, as a husband of a naturalized citizen, give us a little bit of a look into how your wife sees or what you perceive that she sees with this whole situation.
Uh, I mean, so her process, she, so backstory, my wife came here on a student visa. I met her, we got married, and she was able to gain permanent residence through our marriage. She's got her permanent residence now. We're about to renew. We just did the 2 year renewal, and then after the 2 year, we get the 10 year one, and then she can apply for citizenship. Um, to kind of answer your question, of course, my wife's very grateful to be here. Has nothing but great things to say about this country. I mean, Venezuela is in shambles. They're
Yeah,
facing a huge, terrible economic situation, and they're owned by a dictator. Like
yeah,
it's terrible. A lot of bad things happen there. So she's very thankful to be here. But I think what frustrates her most, well, two things. One, and it's just because she's Latin, and because a lot of her work experience and her professional experience isn't here in the United States, she doesn't get a chance at hell at a lot of these jobs that she's very qualified for. Like she applies for these marketing positions all the time, and when she's went to university, she worked for really big companies on their marketing teams in Venezuela. But they don't even blink an eye at her resume just because of her background and where she's from. So when people say that stuff doesn't matter, I used to say the same thing, and then now I'm seeing the situation with her. It's not it's not true.
I didn't
So
realize
she's
that she went to Canada for a little while when she went to university.
yeah,
No,
yeah, no.
well, what she
Um,
needs to start doing is like on her resume with her name, put like um, Danny Brylan Kirkendall Smith, and then they won't skip over like the resume. They'll just be like, "This is the whitest name that we've ever
yeah, I
seen,"
think she just needs to
and
change her
then
last name.
front of the
It'll just
top.
solve everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But to go, not just a work situation too, like, so like her situation with her mom and her sister, her mom's tourist visa just expired. and we're trying to figure out how to get that renewed. And they're saying it's the process just for renewal of, oh, it was a passport renewal is like 2 years. And that's not even a guarantee it gets done in two
Yeah, it
years.
gets done.
Yeah. And then her sister has applied. So her sister had a tourist visa. Traveled, she was trying to come to the US to see her dad. Border Patrol or whoever it was stopped her, asked her why she was coming to the country. And mind you, she's had a tourist visa since she was a kid. She's they've used to come to this Disneyland like every year as a family. Immigration stopped her, asked her why she was coming to the country. She said, "Well, I'm coming to see my father. He lives in Chicago, and my sister too." And they said, "No, let me see your visa." Took her visa away, denied it, didn't give any explanation, and told her to leave. She's applied 3 times since then, has been denied every single time without explanation. So my wife's, I would say, she's not here to say this, but what I think it is, she's grateful to be here, but she's very frustrated by the lack of support, not just for her family. This is the Venezuelan situation. It's just the one I'm most fluent and I see. It's so hard. Like there's literally no support for the people at all. Like there is none. And this whole thing about, oh, well, Biden's doing the sanctions, Trump's doing the sanctions. I don't think people realize who sanctions actually hurt. Sanctions are meant to hurt the people, which in turn hopefully hurts the government.
Hmm.
But when the government's a dictatorship that doesn't give a fuck about the people, it's the people who are suffering.
Right.
And I, from her perspective, I'm assuming it's the same as mine. It's just it seems like there is just no support for them specifically. But we're seeing a lot of immigrants coming, not just from Venezuela, Colombia now. Colombia is getting really bad. They're actually working
They've
on a
been, yeah,
partnership with Maduro and their new
right,
president. Cuba, they had what
yeah,
was that was just a couple months ago, right? When people were like
right,
literally swimming on like
yes.
overflowing boats just to get here from that.
Well, and we've had a history. I mean, when we talk about history of migrants who have fled to this country, I mentioned to the boys before the start at the top of the podcast was when you look back into the 70s, you had what was known as the Vietnamese boat people, Cambodians, Vietnamese, Thai, people who were coming here to America on literally skiffs of wood. And they declared and they asked for political asylum, and we gave it to them, recognizing that the country that they were coming from was communist. During the 80s, there was this large exodus of people who were defecting from Russia. And some of the high profile, like Olympic, when we had in 1980, it was in the Olympics were in Lake Placid. And there was a number of athletes from Russia who declared political asylum, and we took them in. And that was just kind of a high profile move of us saying, look how bad things are in these countries, and we let them in. And that was, when you look back at it, that was a total political play on the failures of communism. And like we said, we saw the same thing happen in the 50s when Fidel took over Cuba, and we are starting to see a lot of the same thing with his brother. His brother Raul is now running Cuba, and the situation still hasn't changed.
No.
And so, in our last segment here, let's move on to then about what these governors, Republicans governors, nonetheless. I want to get you what your guys' thoughts are on this. And Travis, I don't know if you have any numbers as far as Texas numbers and amount of immigrants coming in through Texas and versus Florida and all these other places.
I don't have that breakdown. No, I
But
couldn't find that one.
yeah, so in the last, this is within the last few months. Data from a Syracuse University study suggests that the movement from Texas to New York City may be an opening and easier pathway to asylum for the migrants, helping them stay in the country longer. New York courts have approved just about 70% of asylum relief and other relief applications since 2001. The city of Houston, no, take this in, the city of Houston has denied nearly 88% of asylum seekers. Dallas has
I
denied over
believe it.
72% of such applications of asylum seekers. And I think a lot of and so fast forward to what happened back on the 22nd. Okay. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas sends 5 buses. This was on August 24th. Governor Greg Abbott sends 5 buses of migrants to New York City, and just dumps them off at the bus station there in New York. Okay, here you go, and then you look at what DeSantis did. DeSantis is relocating people with state funds, and the quote that came out from DeSantis, and I need to find this quote. If you have folks that are inclined to think Florida is a good place, our message to them is that we are not a sanctuary state. It's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction, and yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you to be able to go to greener pastures. And what DeSantis ended up doing was Florida then set aside $12 million, taxpayer money, to relocate migrants from the state. And there's, and kind of it's already looking kind of shady, is that there is this company that has links to the GOP in Florida that has received $1.6 million to transport immigrants to these cities. And overall, when I looked at this, I'll say what I think, and then you guys kind of jump in on this. When I look at this situation, I can see both sides of this argument.
Hmm.
First of all, Arizona and Texas are some of the largest. They're the easiest to get into. I mean, there's parts of the Rio Grande. If you go along the Texas border, there's parts of the Rio Grande that have like a little stream running through it. There's other parts of the Rio Grande that is a raging river. And there's some parts where they're not the wall. You can step over. And so you have all of these illegals coming in. You have women who are coming in, 8.5, 9 months pregnant, just so they can have their baby in the United States and have that anchor baby and have their roots tied here. And like you said, Travis, the situation in Central and South America is terrible. I've been to Mexico twice. I've been to Costa Rica 4 times, and the poverty is just out of this world. And they're terrible situations. What's going on? I can see the point of them coming here, but I can also see the point of these governors and these and Senate. These governors saying, "Okay, fine. You want greener pastures? We're going to send you to greener pastures." Now, you were telling us earlier, what is the Venezuelan president doing? He kind of sees this as an insult. So what is he doing, and what's been his response to this?
So I've seen a couple news articles covering this, and this was from a Border Patrol report that I guess they submitted for a national security threat. Supposedly, Maduro is emptying his prisons of all criminals, and from what my wife and father-in-law have told me from the sources they read, because they obviously read different sources than us, these aren't just like petty crime criminals. These are like murderers. These are rapists. These are like supposedly very bad people. And Maduro's releasing them from prison, and he's sending them to the U.S. And of course, Trump was talking about this recently too. He kind of blew it up, but so I hear that, and if people aren't familiar with the situation, obviously Maduro is not a friend of the U.S.
Mm-mm.
Trump was not nice with Maduro, and honestly, Biden hasn't been very friendly with him either. There is talks of negotiating that could reduce sanctions, which, hey, if it's better if it's gonna help the people, I'm okay with it. I just wish, honestly, I wish we could have got rid of the guy a long time ago, but that's a different story. Um,
So what's your thought?
What was the question again?
What?
Sorry.
So no. You're. So what is your opinion then? I mean, how do you feel about DeSantis? I mean, DeSantis sent these, and
Yes.
these were Venezuelan migrants, by the way, largely Venezuelan migrants that he sent to Martha's Vineyard, and then you add Greg Abbott, who sent him basically to Kamala Harris's front door. I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously it's a political move, but at the same time, it's like,
Yes.
okay, if you're going to armchair quarterback from 2,000 miles away, here you go.
I think, yeah, number one, it was absolutely a political move, and it's kind of unfortunate that they used immigrants as a political tool like that. However, like you made a good point. I can see both sides of this argument because number one, Republicans, especially the ones that in the states along the border who are really feeling the effects of this, they have been begging the current administration for guidance on this. To hey, look, we're having these issues. We need executive action. We need the federal government to step in on this. Like this is the problem, and it's been nothing. Almost no acknowledgement from our administration about it up until recently, and it hasn't been very productive. So on one hand, yes, I totally understand their frustrations. However, I think I find it a little disappointing that the answer is just sending them off somewhere else. But here, you figure it out. It's like, no, these are people in need. Like I truly believe most of the people coming across the border genuinely want to come here to live a better life. You can call me naive, but I really think they mean well. They want to come. They want a better future for their families. Um, it's just for me, I'm really upset to see. All right, take DeSantis for example. DeSantis is someone that they're priming to potentially be president. Is that the action I want to see a future president take? Oh, I got these migrants here in New York. You figure it out. No, be a leader. Step up. Figure something out. Set an example of what right looks like instead of just blaming someone else for it. Is it DeSantis' responsibility to do that? I mean, they're in his state, right? Hey, I don't know. I saw it more as just putting the problem off to somebody else. However, again, I get it. They've been asking for action, but it's like, all right, we'll set an example. Do the right thing.
Sean,
It's
what's
kind of
your
my
what's your thoughts, Sean?
No, I'm in total agreement. That this is just such a political scheme, and it's kind of a shame because like one of the big things that I read in a lot of these articles about it is that he's using these people as actual political pawns. And like
yes.
we keep forgetting like these are people, there are children, there's so much more at stake here. It's not just like there, people find it funny and it's kind of tough, especially like, when for me, at least, like, do those people, do they affect me? Not necessarily, no, because I don't know any of them, but knowing that a lot of them are Venezuelan and my best friend's wife is Venezuelan and there's a possibility that she could maybe know some of these people or know someone that knows these people. And then you hear about what they're going through. Like it's just kind of, it's disheartening. And it's one of those things where instead of going, look, what can we do to rectify this situation and make this situation better for these people and for the people that are already here in the United States, it's, hey, this will be funny. Let's send them to Napa Valley and make the California whites deal with them. You know what I'm saying? It's just like but again, like, look at how the people in Napa Valley welcomed them with open arms and had tables and had all kinds of stuff and resources that were there for them, because here's the thing, like, we know I would say pretty much all of us consider ourselves fiscal conservatives, when it comes to the financial side of the economic side of politics. And we understand that not everything can be sunshine and daisies and you can have whatever you want, you can and you can do whatever you want, but I speak as someone, my family, we've taken advantage um, of social programs that help out these families, and these resources need to be allocated, and we just need to kind of figure out what we can do to protect the American citizen, but then also protect these people that are coming here. Because I remember the conversation was always like, I remember hearing it when Trump was there. He's like, lock your doors because everyone's hopping the border to come take your jobs, take your wives, and take your kids.
Well,
Yeah.
what was the name of that gang that keep M13
MS-13.
MS-13?
Right.
And this is not to say that there is not human trafficking going on over the border. This is not to say that there are not illegal. I mean, heroin now is more available in the United States, and obviously, the drug hotline or the highway is coming from Central and Southeast or Central and Southern American countries. When
I would argue a lot of that fentanyl is, if you look at some stuff, a lot of it's
China.
From China.
China, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, so this week's survey question was, and thank you all for, and I think it actually helped that we had this up for 2 weeks. What do you feel needs to be done to help alleviate the immigration crisis that is facing our nation today? 14% said build the wall, secure the borders. 43% said to make the citizenship process more efficient.
Yes.
And then our good friend Martin Hanley said make citizenship process more efficient, but also border security, which is where 50% came in and said that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's spend these last few minutes then going into and again, we're just three brain farts in America here who are armchair quarterbacking this ourselves. But when you look into, there's got to be a simpler solution. If there's two things that could possibly happen, you guys have seen it in your lifetime. You may not have recognized it, but during the Obama administrations, it was pretty much open border policy, and you just saw people driving through. Okay. And then the exact opposite when you see Trump as president and you see these kids getting separated from their parents, and their parents are in one place, kids are in another, and they're sleeping on the cots with the aluminum blankets and whatever, and you're seeing all that horrible stuff. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere. And you don't want to point this out to too many Trump people, but Joe Biden has to a not as much as an extent as what Trump did, but has resumed construction on the border wall. And
which is, considering he was criticizing Trump for doing it, that's such a BS move from him.
Yeah,
that's politics, right?
But and that's the other thing that isn't brought out a lot. We're not the only country who builds barriers between country borders. We're not the only ones who do that. When you talk about you got to go through a lot of these places. You have the checkpoints, and if you don't have the proper paperwork, they're going to say, sorry, not today. Or, but there has to be, I think that the wall issue is, people will find ways around it. They'll climb it. They'll get through it. I
think the walls become more of an idea than what it actually is. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the wall's more of like a symbol and more of a political narrative than it is actual just what it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's just what it seems like to me, or it seems like what it's become. But I was gonna say something on the lines of that, but go ahead, Sean.
Oh no, I didn't have anything. Sorry.
Well, okay. So just to give you guys, I just Googled this. Okay, as of December 2021, Border walls are located in the following nations. And we already know about the DMZ between North Korea and South Korea. Okay. I think it's kind of funny there at the demilitarized zone. I watched a 60 Minutes report one time, and the base that's right there, they put a 9-hole golf course, and it's like the 6th hole runs parallel with the border, and the golf, and the general's like, they're out there golfing, and the general's like, I always like to put one over there into North Korea just to let them know that we're still around, you know. But North Korea, South Korea, Hong Kong. Now, I have personally seen this wall. There is a wall between Hong Kong and China. You go from an 8-lane highway, and they funnel you down to 2 lanes. And basically, when you get there, in our transport, our van, both times, they opened the door. They had one of those temperature scan guns. This is before COVID, and so they would do the temperature scan. We had to give our passports to our driver. Our driver then gave them to the armed guard there and then they looked everything over, checked everything, gave them back, and then we're allowed back through. If you take the train route, it's the same thing. You have to get off and go through immigration. But other ones, South Africa has a wall. Mozambique, Egypt, Kuwait, Iraq, Spain, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Botswana, Zimbabwe, India, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Brunei, Bulgaria, Hungary. So these are all, and there's actually more. There's one between Belize and Guatemala. There's one between Costa Rica and Nicaragua, Thailand and Malaysia. But what we want to focus on is how evil the walls are. But I think we're quick to forget that is an inherent power of a sovereign state, is to protect its borders and to control immigration. So, we have to examine this. And like you said, Travis, there's a lot of people who are dying. They're picking up bodies. They're picking up bodies at the border.
Yeah, they found almost 800 bodies in the Texas border this year alone, and they're saying they're probably going to end up finding obviously more. It's only September, and that's just along the border. That's not even counting across Mexico.
Mm-mm.
That's not even counting across through the Amazon.
Yeah.
People are, people are making this just trip, man. It's wild. Like it's not like these people are just hopping on a bus and then just showing up. Like
Mm-mm.
some of them are literally traveling cross country in groups, like trying to not get caught by the governments down there, because the governments down there in some cases are trying to stop them from leaving. That's another thing people don't realize.
I see that you have your hand raised too, Travis. Did you?
Yeah. And something else I wanted to go off of, and I was trying to say this earlier and I lost my damn train of thought. Sean had mentioned, the idea of, oh, these people are going to come take our jobs. I don't know about you two gentlemen. Have you gone down your local town and seen help wanted signs?
Yeah.
We are obviously experiencing a worker shortage. If people are coming here, and let's not even count the asylum cases that are coming. The people that apply for visas here and get denied, if we rewarded people from doing the proper, and I'm not saying that people are doing the wrong process by coming and claiming asylum, if they're really fear for their lives, but if we have people that are going through the application process, trying to come here and get work visas and do it the traditional way, why would we not give them the opportunity? Maybe I'm ignorant to macroeconomics, but I would assume if America's workforce grew and we had people to fill these jobs, wouldn't that drive businesses? Wouldn't that drive income? If we have an influx of these people not only working and contributing to society and paying taxes, I don't see how that wouldn't increase infrastructure. We'd have to build more homes. I mean, God, I already see neighborhoods around here growing. Imagine if we actually allowed these people who, again, are doing the proper process and doing the things right to come here. why not give them the opportunity? Why not? Like I don't see how that doesn't help us as a country.
I'll tell you why not, Travis. Because
Here we
they
go.
don't speak
They don't
Like,
American.
speak
have you
American.
guys worked with like people from like Mexico or
Yes.
Latin America?
Yes.
They are some of the hardest
Hardest
working
workers.
people ever.
Hardest
I
workers.
got I got two guys I work with at my company now. I was working with them for a while and I got moved to a different crew, and they're both Hispanic. They are some of the hardest working dudes ever. We bust ass when I work with those guys, and they're a great time. We have a great time. They're good people. They work hard to support their family. And I don't know. I see it's just from what I'm seeing, I don't get it. Like I do not understand the mindset or the idea that they're coming to take our jobs. I
I
don't see that.
I had addressed this. I addressed this in my class. This has been. It may have been back in your time. So here in Louisiana, we have Stark Brothers nurseries, and they still have a
Hmm.
large Guatemalan. It's not Mexican. It's Guatemalan. We have more Guatemalans in Louisiana than we do Mexicans. I found that out from I forgot who I talked to about that. But there was a time, and they don't. I haven't seen them do this in a while. But when I lived in Pittsfield, I always timed it to where I pulled up to the four-way there in Louisiana to turn south to go to Clopton, and I would get there right around 7 o'clock. And every day there would be a bus that pulled up to 79 and 54 there, and it would stop, and there would be a group of migrant workers who were there at the Ables on the four-way, and they got on the bus. And when you look in the newspapers, and still to this day, there's still an ad in there offering minimum wage jobs to anybody who will fill out the paperwork, have proof of visa and citizenship, or visa, work visa, whatever. Do you know how many white people I saw getting on those buses? Zero. If they're taking jobs, they're taking jobs that people don't want. And what's really bad about it is they're grateful for it.
Yeah,
It's
they
not
just want
it's
the
not bad for them. It's
opportunity.
bad for us because we don't recognize these folks know how to put in, like you said, Travis, a hard day's work. They
Well,
know
they
how to
bust
work.
ass.
If and what really knocked me in the teeth, and this was before the start of school. I had a Mexican missionary knock on my door. He was from the local. We have a Latino church here, and they were planning a youth rally for the area youth. And I told him, I said, man, hey, I was a youth pastor at one time, and he and I we talked through his son who was the interpreter. But I'm like, where are you from? And he's like, Guadalajara. I'm from Guadalajara. He said, I felt led by God to come here and be a missionary to the United States. I'm like, we won't even lift a finger to help some people sometimes. And here's this guy coming from another country to evangelize white Americans, you know? So, but
That's pretty
anyway,
cool.
as always, gentlemen, an interesting discussion. And I don't want
Well, yeah,
to.
when it was actually kind of crazy too, because I actually have a friend named Jose who's here because of Mexican missionary, but that's a completely different story.
We'll have to have them on for an interview.
He's a great guy.
Oh my God! Wow. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give us. I'm going to go ahead and give us a shout out for what's going to be coming up in the next week. We're going to be starting. Hopefully, this is going to be a 3-part series. We're going to call it My Hometown, and I get to be the first to be on this. And I'm going to have a friend of mine, one of my longest known childhood friends, he's actually an architect up in your neck of the woods, Travis. He's up in Chicago. I've known him
Okay.
for over 40 years. And we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about how, you know, some story, be a little bit more lighthearted, talk about some stories, some memories growing up. talking about, differences between now and then. And it's going to be a really neat series, and we hope that you guys can join us. I told Travis and Sean, we start talking to your pervert friends from, I could contribute to stories that, especially you, Sean, of things and capades that you have done involving members of the same sex and their genitalia and stuff like that, and so but we have to try to keep this at least a strong PG-13, if not a light rated R. So
We'll put a disclaimer at the bottom for Sean's episode.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll want to make that one of the extra credit episodes for your students. Let's put it that way.
No. So anyway, anything else we got?
That'll be
That's next week. That's next week. That starts next week. Yep. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, good discussion tonight, gentlemen. Anything else we got to talk about, or anything else you guys want to say?
I would just close really quick with I really think the solution really boils down to, and I think we addressed it with the poll. I really think it comes down to, obviously the system's broken and we need changes. I think we just need a more efficient system because it's just so backed up. I really think that would alleviate so much of the issues that we're seeing with immigration. So, hey, if you want action, write your senator.
Yeah, definitely. Sean, anything?
And vote.
No, I don't have anything to add other than the kind of usual thing. Again, thank you for everyone who continues to listen. I'm really excited to start our next series with you guys, and I really hope. One of the big things is, we joke around a lot, we shoot the shit whenever we do these things, but genuinely, one of the big things is, that we just try to do is there's a lot of these conversations that sometimes we don't even know all the know-how, the ins and the outs on how they go, and we know that a lot of our listeners don't as well. So please make sure, if you did like the episode, if there was things that interested you, do your research, and just aside from we've pushed it 100 times on the show before. Don't just trust CNN. Don't just trust Fox. Just make sure you get a couple different, click a couple different links and watch a couple different videos. And it's okay, as fucking stupid as Trevor Noah is, it's okay to listen to some of him go on. You won't have to for much longer. But in the same token, just broaden your horizons and listen to people from different walks, different backgrounds. And again, it'll help paint a different picture for kind of how you see things. But that's all I've got for this week. And again, I'm seriously really excited to talk to you guys next week.
We'll see you.